I'm now going to talk you through a Part D question from the Christianity paper. This is from the practices section. So remember that on paper 2 for Eduqas, you have an ABCD on beliefs and an ABCD on practices. This question is a type of question that Eduqas seem to love in Part Ds, where they get you to say that one thing is more important than another. So one festival is more important than another, which is what this question is about. But it could be one belief is more important than another, or one practice is more important than another. So, going on a pilgrimage is more important than celebrating a festival. So when you're revising, prepping for these kind of questions, thinking about what you would say is a good technique. So this is a Part D, and so it's worth 15 marks, and they're looking for you to form an argument. You don't always have to give two opposite points of view. They can be reaching similar conclusions, but for different reasons. But they want to see you using evidence to support those arguments and making some judgments too. Don't forget that as you're building your arguments, it's like you're writing almost a Part C answer. So you are using sources of wisdom and evidence, just as you would in a Part C, but perhaps tagging on some counter arguments. So this question is asking whether Easter is the most important festival for Christians. Eduqas want to know that you are responding to that question, that statement in particular. And so they want to see that you are repeatedly referring to Easter. Even if you're going to argue that Christmas is more important, it has to come back to Easter. They want to see that you are arguing that Easter is or is not the most important festival, not simply just important. And also that it's the most important festival for Christians, not just for society generally. And so you will notice in my answer, I have highlighted where I have returned to that statement using some or all of the words from that statement. So in the first paragraph, 3 times I refer back, and they're highlighted in yellow so that you can see them. So Easter is the most important. Then after my blue section, Easter is the most important festival. And then in my counter argument section, I have got Christmas is also important. So again, using the word important. Then in my second section, I have got a non-Christian might argue that it looks as if Christmas rather than Easter is the most important festival. Then further down, I talk about most important festival towards the end of my green section, and then again in my green section. And then in my conclusion, I use a really nice phrase. Having looked at both arguments, I agree that for Christians, Easter is the most important festival. And so one of the functions of my conclusion is linking back to the question. When you're doing your Part D answers, it's really important you keep an eye on the time. And to be honest, if you're running out of time, it might be worth dropping your conclusion, particularly if you have got counter arguments and building of evidence going on in your other paragraphs, because often a conclusion isn't introducing anything new, so you're not adding any more marks. However, if you have time, it is good to have a conclusion, just so you can seal off your answer and link back to the question so that you can show to the examiner, I have answered the question, give me a good mark. So let's now talk through each paragraph of my answer. And you will see that I have used the structure that we suggest, A, B, B, C, B. So I have given an answer, which is in black in my top 2 paragraphs. In my answer, I've referred to the statement. I have then given 2 sets of backing ups. They're in red and blue. And then the C is challenge, which is in green. And I've supported that challenge. It's not just a one-line throwaway statement. So, first paragraph, I have said that most Christians would agree and say Easter is the most important festival because it's celebrating the most important event in Christian history, the resurrection of Jesus. I have not really quoted at length any sources of wisdom, but I have spoken about what the Easter story means, and I have used some key terms. So, for example, about atonement from sin. So I'm showing off to the examiner my really good subject knowledge. I have then used a linking statement furthermore. Eduqas love these, and it's showing that you're building an argument. I have then said that Easter is really important because Easter is a uniquely Christian thing. So other religions would believe that Jesus was born. Even non-believers, many of them would agree that Jesus was a person. And so many people would accept parts of the Christian story, but really only Christians believe that Jesus has risen from the dead, and so that's their most important festival. I have then countered that by saying, but actually, if you're really celebrating Christmas, you are remembering that it is the story of the incarnation, that God is present in Jesus, that God is Jesus. And that isn't something that people of other religions believe. And so Christmas is also important because it's part of the bigger Christian story. And so, as well as the counter argument, I've also taken real care to put in some key terms, so incarnation and Emmanuel. I have then got my second argument, and I have done something perhaps a little bit unusual because I have given a non-Christian view. And often when I'm teaching, I say that on paper 2, you want to give 2 religious views, and you only really give a non-religious view if you're going to be referring to Christian beliefs, and that's quite hard to do. So I have then said a non-Christian might argue that it looks as if Christmas is more important because that's the one that most people celebrate. And I have then said, for Christians, it is really important that they evangelise. If I had time then, I could have spoken about the Great Commission and Jesus saying go out and encourage people to repent and baptise, but I don't have time. But I've made the point that Christmas offers a unique time to evangelise, to bring people to Christianity, because churches tend to be so busy, and often you see people at Christmas that you don't see for the rest of the year. I've also said that Christmas should be really important to Christians, so I am linking back to the question, even though I'm giving a non-Christian view, because it's a time to remind the country we are living in a Christian country. That's quite a good argument to make because that's drawing on other things from the specification. And I have given lots of examples, so things like nativity plays, carol concerts, even the Queen's speech. I have then given quite a long counter-argument because this is my Christian view, where I am saying, but actually, although lots of people celebrate Christmas, they don't celebrate Christmas as a Christian would understand. So they're not thinking about the story of the incarnation. They're not celebrating Advent. I didn't mention that, but I could have done. They're not waiting for the coming of Jesus, as it were. And so then I have said, yes, Christmas might be the most important Christian festivals for non-Christians, but for people who are actually Christian, the most important festival has to be Easter. And so I have again linked back to the question. And then I have used a conclusion, and remember, if I've reached my 15 minutes, I have given a really good answer, and so I can move on to the next section. But if I have time, I have used my conclusion to link back to the question, but I have also then given another little point, another source of wisdom, which is the Catechism, sort of the Catholic rule book, if you like, where it does talk about the resurrection of Jesus being the most important teaching. And you could link that with Easter. If resurrection is the most important teaching and everything else is leading to that, the rest of the calendar is leading to Easter. So that is, I would say, easily a grade 9 answer. I have got 2 views on the statement. I have got sources of wisdom, which doesn't always have to be a Bible passage. It can be something like the Catechism. I have got lots of examples to back up what I'm saying and lots of key terms. And I've got counter arguments, and I have shown that I am building my arguments by using linking words like furthermore or however.